Good morning. Lots of faces this morning. It's really great. Welcome to the Unitarian Congregation of the South Fork. I am Mark Potter. I will be leading this service this morning. Our musician is Abby Fleming. Our technical experts are Carl Wittenberg and Kent Martin. Monica Zazada is on the camera this morning, bringing the service live into Zoom. Please direct your technical questions from Zoom to them through the chat. As Unitarian Universalists, we follow no creed or doctrine. Here, we strive to respect the inherent worth and dignity of every being, to honor each person's search for truth and meaning, to encourage peace, compassion, and justice for all nations, all races, all colors, the people of this world. In our actions outside this meeting house, we strive to help those in need, the homeless, the hungry, and the neglected. The few rituals we follow in this gathering are symbols of hope, that these principles may gather strength in our own hearts and beyond the walls of the meeting house. The songs we sing elevate these principles to bind us emotionally as a community. Wherever you are on your life's journey, whatever your name for the sacred, you are very welcome here. To open spring, next Sunday's service will include a meditative walk in the woods. The Japanese call it Shinrin Yoku, or forest bathing. Tina's here. Tina will explain this a little more to us next week. If you are not familiar with tick protection, we will spray your shoes and the cuffs of your pants with a bottle of permethrin spray, which dries clear and scentless, and is pretty near foolproof. Our Zoom participants will join us on the walk through apps in our cell phones. So please mark your calendars. Please mark your calendars for May 15th at 2:15 when we're hosting the concert pianist, Bruce Wosoloff, as a benefit for our food pantry. Did I pronounce that correctly? Wolosoff. At 2 o'clock. Ooh. Okay, yeah, 2 o'clock. Is there anything I missed? Any other announcements? No, okay. You can find more information about how to connect to events this week in your e-bulletin and on the events calendar on your website. And you can get announcements that you would like announced to the congregation to our administrator by Tuesday of the week you would like them announced. Those of you who are visiting through Zoom, please sign our virtual guest book using the link in the chat, and someone from our Care and Connection team will be in touch with you. Visitors here at the meeting house have signed in at the door. And visitors, if you are in agreement with our values, our mission, and our UU principles, we hope you will find a home here. John.
Just after the service, we're having our annual budget hearing. It will appear on the screen. So if you're on Zoom, just hang around. And if you're in the meeting house, grab some coffee and maybe come back right away because don't want the Zoom people to drift away. And if you're interested in our budgeting, please come. I think you'll find it instructive. And thank you.
Thanks. Our minister, Kimberly Quinn Johnson, is on sabbatical leave through May. This morning, Michel Dobbs will share his wisdom with us. We were planning to have him here in person, but on Thursday, he called to tell me his wife tested positive for COVID. So to protect us all, he is joining us through Zoom. Michel is a Zen priest, a Dharma heir of Peter Muryo Matheson Roshi, and a co-teacher at the Ocean Zendo, who practices here in our meeting house. He has taught meditation to incarcerated minors at the Suffolk County Correction Facility in Riverhead since 2012. He began practicing Zen with the New York City Sangha of the late Kyodo Nakagaj Roshi in 1992. He began study with Muryo Roshi in Bridgehampton here in 1994. And was ordained in 2001 and received Dharma transmission in 2005. And now, Sue, if you would light our chalice. Flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral hearth, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom, we strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. Thank you. Today, we're delighted to have our young people joining us for this part of the service. I think has it been 3 years since that's happened? I don't know, it's been a long time. And after these words for all ages, this story that I'm about to tell, we'll sing them out. And as I've been instructed, you're to leave on stage left, which is over there. And there's a stairway down to the outside if anybody's curious. So my grandmother, at the age of 68, spent a night alone in the woods, lost. It was in a wilderness. No airplanes overhead, no sounds of traffic, only the wind in the trees. My father and his brothers found her sitting sadly beside a dying fire at about 5 a.m. To her last days, my grandmother swore she was not lost, that instead her compass was broken. Now, many of you know I grew up in a dairy farm in Western Connecticut, but my father's family owned a camp at the edge of a wilderness in the Adirondacks. And by wilderness, I mean plenty of room to be lost. 200 or more square miles of woodland with no settlements and only one road to a railroad track. Our camp up there is a 2-story house with 5 bedrooms, running water, built of logs in 1905, wood shingles on the outside, wainscot in the interior walls, and a warm fire in the kitchen stove. Granny may have been out gathering mushrooms that fall day 70 years ago, or she may even have been hunting. Women did that back then and still do, I think. I was very young when this happened, younger than you boys and girls, so I had to piece the story together from conversations I overheard, questions partly answered, and my father's hints. She left camp that morning with a lunch, a map, a flashlight, and compass in her back day pack. In the autumn, sun sets at about 4:30 in the Adirondacks. So my father would have begun to worry by about 4 that afternoon, where Granny still hadn't come back. He and his brothers would have begun a serious search at dark an hour later. I remember this all happened 60 years actually before cell phones and before satellites and global position systems. And now, thanks to the miracle of GPS, I can look at a map on my cell phone and see myself as a blue dot moving across the contours. All I need now is to point my phone to the north to see exactly how to find my way home, even in dense woods where I can see nothing around me but trees. But before those GPS systems, we used a map and a compass. With the help of a compass, you turned your map so it pointed north and south. Then you compared the contour lines on the map to the country you saw surrounding you. Pretty easy in the West where they've got peaks and mountains, but in the Adirondacks, the mountains are very low and pretty much all you see are trees and hills. And I mention this only to say that the job of getting out of the woods and home at night was not particularly easy back then. To make things harder, local geography has a way of repeating itself. Earthquakes and glaciers lay out the ponds and lakes in similar patterns and similar directions. The knobs, ridges, and swamps all have the same varieties of trees, often have similar shapes. Back then, your true position in the woods was an educated guess. Oddly, the only people who got lost were those who were absolutely certain they knew where they were. We learned not to be certain until we opened the door of the camp and walked into the kitchen and out of the cold. But for my little old granny, confidence was the true mark of an adult. She knew the right and wrong of every given situation, how to shake hands, how to dress for school, how to sit in church, how small boys should behave at the dinner table. Have you ever met anyone like that? So, of course, that's what landed her in trouble. That autumn afternoon, she was on a ridge between an arm of our home lake and a pond that had been shaped by the same glacier many millions of years before. That pond was roughly the same width and length as the arm of the lake. So she somehow got herself turned around among the knobs at the top of the ridge. Turned around is the expression we used for being totally disoriented, fantastically confused, where east seems west and north seems south, and you're sure of it. Seeing the pond, she became convinced it was the arm of our lake. So she turned left, expecting to arrive in camp at a half an hour. Her compass showed she was headed west, away from camp, but it took only a moment for her to decide she was right and the compass was wrong. I tell this story to illustrate how the self-confidence, which is so valuable in many ways, can lead us seriously astray. For my grandmother, it led to a cold night alone in the woods. But consider for a moment the story I just told you. What does it tell you about me? How am I able to tell a story that makes fun of my grandmother? And this is where the story gets a little hard to tell. The truth is, I never liked her very much. This may have been because she didn't approve of little boys with dirty fingernails, or perhaps there was something more, something I overheard from my parents. In any case, I had an attitude, and I was never able to see my granny as the happy girl, the Presbyterian's youngest daughter, the Presbyterian minister's youngest daughter, who fell madly in love with my grandfather, who cared deeply for her 6 children, and probably loved her grandchildren. But I wouldn't know because I didn't let her. So here's the conclusion, and it's a little bit complicated. The challenge we all face in our journey through life is to have enough confidence in ourselves to accept our own observations and the conclusions we make from them, while always holding out the possibility that we may be wrong. There may be more to the story than we know, or we may even be turned around. as fantastically confused as my grandmother was on that cold autumn night. This is true whether you're 6 years old, 11 years old, or 60 years old. So let's sing the children out. How many years has it been since we've done this? I think we said 3. Carl will put the words on the screen so we all remember. I'm waiting for the words. There, good. Great. Peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. So now let's sing number 298 in the blue hymnal. We'll sing the first 3 verses, just the first 3 verses, Awake Now My Senses. Thanks. So let's try a call and response reading. It's been a while since we've done this too. It's number 650 in your hymnal. I'll read the bold type and you read the italic type. For those on Zoom, Carl will display the reading on your screen and Sue will lead you in reading the italic type. Please keep yourself on mute. So 650, let me get to it.
No.
I don't have it in the slides? No. Sorry, folks. We'll just have to follow Sue as best we can. Those of you on Zoom, I'm really sorry. That was, okay, 650. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the attendant of truth.
Doubt is the key to the door of knowledge. It is the servant of discovery.
A belief which may not be questioned bind us to error, for there is incompleteness and imperfection in every belief.
Doubt is the touchstone of truth. It is an acid which eats away the false.
Let no one fear for the truth, that doubt may consume it, for doubt is a testing of belief.
The truth stands boldly and unafraid. It is not shaken by the testing.
For truth, if it be truth, arrives from each testing stronger, more secure.
Those that would silence doubt are filled with fear. Their houses are built on shifting sands.
But those who fear not doubt and know its use are founded on rock.
They shall walk in the light of growing knowledge. The work of their hands shall endure.
Therefore, let us not fear doubt, but let us rejoice in its help.
It is to the wise as a staff to the blind. Doubt is the attendant of truth.
Thank you. That was great. So we support the work of this congregation in many ways. And while we are meeting in this dual platform online, you can still contribute by PayPal or check. Our financial contributions help to support the ongoing work of this congregation, including these services, our children's exploration, and pastoral support. And your generosity is reflected in the ways we are able to show up in our community for justice and care. Our Helping Hands Fund provides support to local organizations, and our Minister's Discretionary Fund provides support to individuals in need. So if you're online and you can use the PayPal now or later, or send a check to our address. And now let's listen to our offertory music. And now is the time in our community of shared faith when we share the deep joys, sorrows, and concerns of our hearts. If you have a joy or concern to share, please come to the front and take this microphone. I'll get it out. Sue will light the candles for us. If you're joining from Zoom, please unmute yourself, share your name, and if you're joining from the phone, you can unmute yourself by pressing *9. *6. You can also share your joy or concern in the chat. And if you have a joy or concern you'd like to share beyond this group gathered here this morning, please use the link in the chat to share with Pam Ittenberg for our Care and Connections team.
Can I insert?
In the blue hymnal, Winds Be Still. Okay. And now let's spotlight Michel and turn the podium over to him. Thank you.
Okay, it said unmute myself. I think I've done it. Have I done it? I'll trust that I have. Okay, good, good. So, first of all, I'm really touched to. I wish I was at the service with those of you that are there live, but you do a wonderful job of making one feel there, and that's an amazing thing. So thanks to everyone that's doing that, Kent, Carl, Monica, and I have a lot of gratitude for that. Thank you. It's so important now. So so beginner's mind is what I'm going to talk about. Beginner's mind is a phrase that comes from it's Japanese shoshin. It's a word meaning beginner's mind, and it points to an attitude of openness and wonder and letting go of our ideas and opinions. So Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, who was the founder of the San Francisco Zen Center, wrote a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And in it, he said, if your mind is empty, it is always ready for anything. It is open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. And I think that, Mark, your wonderful story about your granny, she sounded like a real expert. And I think most of us are pretty expert. We have a lot of ideas and opinions, and then we live in the world formed by those ideas and opinions. We tend to seek out the company of people who have ideas and opinions that are similar to ours, and we sit in our co-created delusion sometimes. And that may be true for Buddhists and UUs as well, but but we have a nice story, which is that we're all connected. So anyway, Murio Roshi had a really beautiful quote in his book. My teacher Murio, Peter Mathewson, he talks about. It invokes the natural feeling of early childhood that heaven and earth and all the many beings are one, before the child's clear eye is clouded over by ideas, opinions, preconceptions, and abstractions. In our culture, the dominant narrative that we're taught and that is fed to us over and over and over every day is the story of separation, that the universe consists of a multitude of independent, discrete phenomena, and I'm one of them, and you're one of them, and we're not connected to each other, and I have to pull myself up by my bootstraps, and you have to do the same. So that story leaves us feeling cut off from nature, from ourselves, from our families and communities. We feel insecure and alienated from our own bodies, immersed in scarcity, trapped in a tiny separate self that hungers constantly for its lost connection. And I think in many ways, a lot of the work that I've done with people who are dying or people in prison, what I see is that deeper than all of the difficult things that they may be going through, the hardest one to live with is that feeling of loneliness, of being alone, of being disconnected, you know, and that, you know, there's an epidemic now of loneliness, and it's been exacerbated certainly by the past 2 years with this pandemic or more. And so, you know, it's important to find your connection, to practice your connection. And beginner's mind is this mind where we're not stuck in our ideas and opinions about what is, we just are with what is, right? And again, Murillo wrote, simple free being becomes encrusted with the burdensome armor of the ego. Not until years later does an instinct come that a vital sense of mystery has been withdrawn. The sun glints through the pines, the heart is pierced in a moment of beauty and strange pain, like a memory of paradise. And after that day, at the bottom of each breath, there's a hollow place filled with longing. We become seekers without knowing what we seek. And at first we long for something greater than ourselves, something apart and far away. It's not a return to childhood, for childhood is not a truly enlightened state, yet to seek one's true nature is, as one Zen master has said, a way to lead you to your long-lost home. So that sounds good, and it gives us a pretty clear reason why we might want to practice with beginner's mind, I think. You'll let me know if otherwise. We'll try to see if we can do a Q&A at the end of this. But, you know, to meet life and the world directly as they are, not as we imagine, believe, or have been told that they are, it takes a lot of work to do that, because we're continuously fed this story, and some of it plays into our biology, that we're separate, you know, that we don't, you're over there, I'm over here. And what I do is my business, what you do is your business, right? But when you look at it, these feelings of being separate, coming from this worldview, they perpetuate the behavior and systems that cause racism, poverty, climate change, war, right? If we can make somebody the other, it's always easier if they're the other. I mean, to do horrible things to them. And we see that playing out in you know, in Ukraine, and how this propaganda of, you know, and it's on both sides, honestly, you know, we're very busy making Putin this evil other that we can hate and condemn and judge, and so it's important to look in your heart and see, you know, he didn't get there in a vacuum. So so that gives us a clear reason why we might want to practice it, and it takes some effort to practice it. How do we do it? And the simple answer is we're lost. We're not lost, but our compass is broken. We have to, and our compass is those ideas and beliefs and opinions that we have. So how do we let go of that and meet life directly? And what I would like to do is now lead the meditation, because that's how we do it. Meditating brings us back to just this moment, just this breath, feeling yourself in your body right now. Because a lot of the times what I see is that that's what people are separate from. if you weren't breathing, you wouldn't be here. And you do it all day long and night, but you don't even ever pay attention to that. So how does it feel? How does the breath feel? So I'll ask you all to sit if you can, in an upright and strong way, and just breathe in and out. Give yourself permission for the next couple of minutes not to solve, figure out, do anything, but just breathe. I don't know if there's a way, Kent, Mark, or Carl, to do Q&A, or if you want to, if there's time for it. So I'll let you decide. And if there's Q&A, just let me know.
So our hand mic just ran out of batteries. So if you've got a question for Michelle, you'll come up to the podium and ask your question. And I'll just start out, Michelle. So when I'm meditating and a thought comes into my mind that really should not be there, it's what I'm going to do next or what's going to happen next. How do you deal with those thoughts when they come into your mind?
So I think that the one really important thing is to be kind to yourself. Thoughts come and go. They are part of what good, well-functioning brain. So we don't want to sit there and go, "Oh my God, that thought." Suzuki Roshi used to say, when thoughts come in, open the front door, let them in, invite them in, and then open the back door and let them out, because they come and go. He used to say, just don't invite them in for tea. So that would be our method, is not to reject them, right? Just to let them go and come back to the breath. When you notice that you've gone, you know, you've lost your focus, just come back to it over and over and over again. And that's a simple description of what meditation is, because it happens to everybody that does it, I believe.
Mark?
Go ahead, Diana.
Hi. I was just very interested in what you said about Putin, because I'm one of those people that have been consoling myself by saying he's evil. Could you expand a little bit more about how do you think Putin got there? What vacuum or what's going on with him?
So, um, you know, in our practice, we try, one of the foundational precepts is not to judge others, but to understand them. Um, and I'm by no means in support of what Putin's doing. So, to be very clear, I condemn what he's doing, and think that we need to, you know, do things against it. But the problem with demonizing him and a whole people is that we are making them other, right? And then sometimes when I look at the news and I hear Putin's war and this and that, I think it's a very easy way. It sounds to me like the drums of war, right? We're getting ready. Once we can make him the other, we can go ahead and kill him, or do, you know, what we feel needs to be done. Putin, when I said he doesn't come out of a vacuum, he grew up in St. Petersburg, I believe, during the siege of St. Petersburg in the Second World War. When it was under siege for something like 3 years, people starved to death, died, you know, many people died. So when I look at how can a person become that person, you know, it allows me not to sit with it allows me to sit with some forgiveness, or understanding. Maybe not forgiveness. It's not my place to forgive him, but I might understand why a person who grew up in hell would perpetuate hell, and see my own tendency to do the same thing, you know. So I don't know. It's certainly easy to jump to that feeling of judgment for another, but it hasn't gotten us far as humanity. So.
This is Carol Mason. I'd like to ask a question. When we meditate, are we praying? Are we talking to our God, whoever that is? Or do we just sit with a quiet mind?
Thanks, Carol. I'm not quite sure. For example, Steve Tuna Flores, his meditation, I don't know what he's doing. So, praying and meditation are often thought of as being very similar, and they are, you know. But Zazen meditation is very bare bones. It's called the religion before religion, right? So we don't create an idea about it. We just want to experience this right now. There's no asking. We're not asking for anything. We're not expressing anything. We're simply feeling what this moment feels like. Bare bones. But, and that doesn't mean if you feel called to pray when you're meditating, then you should, and you can pray to God, you can pray to Allah, you can pray to whomever you'd like to, the universe, and I find in my practice, I often just say the names of people who are sick or who have died, and I recite their names and say the metta prayer, which is the metta prayer is, may they be safe and well, may they be in good health, may they be free from suffering. And we say it first for them and then for all beings. So, so I hope that answers your question. You're allowed to do what you want when you meditate. No one gets into your head and polices you for doing whatever you may be doing. But in a sense, the way that I teach Zen meditation sometimes in jail, because I'm not teaching Buddhism, I tell them, think of it as it's a prayer. It's the prayer of listening. Instead of asking or telling or beseeching God, you're listening to God.
Michelle, when does Zendo meet in the meeting house?
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
The Zendo meets right now live in the meeting house on Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock. We do a service, and then at 8:40 or so, we sit for 30 minutes, and then we do counsel at 9:10, which is a way of sitting in a circle and sharing.
And can we meet with you? Can we join you?
Absolutely, yep. Everybody is welcome, and we, regardless of belief or anything, you can show up and join us, please.
I have a question. How do we take this and bring it home? And because I love coming to do it with others, but I know I need to practice right where I am now.
Yeah, thank you, Lord. That's the only place to practice, and again, that's why there's plenty of little things you can do during the day, anonymous acts of kindness, simply going and helping your neighbor, helping yourself, but and those are wonderful practices, and I encourage you to investigate looking at doing what you can do to, I guess, feel and share your connection, but the simple practice that we do in this moment is being fully present, and the simple way that we do that is by paying attention to our breathing, noticing and recognizing those thoughts, opinions, and feelings as they arise, and letting them go, and returning to this breath, this breath, this breath. Oh, Murio Roshi used to say, I've been teaching Zen for 40 years, I think he said, and the only teaching I have is this breath, moment after moment, breath after breath.
Thanks. Anyone else? Thank you so much, Michelle. So our last song will be the number 134. We have the words of it pretty sure on the screen. And the song is Our World is One World. World is one world, but So after the worship is over, we invite you to remain in the room or in Zoom for informal conversation. But this morning, it's probably only going to last about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll go into our our annual meeting. No, it's not our annual meeting. So it's a budget report. No, it's the same link. You'll just stay right on this link.
On this computer, so it may be a little complicated, but maybe we'll keep it posted on different platforms.
Okay. I understand. Go your ways, knowing not the answers to all things, yet seeking always the answer to one more thing than you know now. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now let's listen to some music.